Hey, thanks for joining me for our study in the book of Daniel. Today we are going to start looking at some prophecies that Daniel made near the end of the book. You see, the second half of the book is made up of all these prophecies that Daniel saw throughout his life. And today we're going to look at one of those. Before we do that, I want to ask you, how quickly can you run? How fast can you run if a bear is chasing you? How fast can you run if you see that your child's in danger? We see there was a man in the 20th century named Roger Bannister. He could run really fast. And he broke the record for how quickly someone could run the mile. He ran it in less than 4 minutes. And the year after that, someone else ran it quicker than him. And the year after that, someone ran it quicker than him. You see, there was a record to be broken. There was a record to be had and a record to be broken. And that record didn't last forever. People keep breaking that record. You know, things change. Nothing lasts forever. Kings and kingdoms collapse. People get older and we pass away. Our cars break down. Nothing lasts forever. The only thing that we know for sure about the future is that Jesus is going to come back, and there are some events that surround that. Well, all we know for sure is that one day he's going to come back. That is the only thing that we know is going to happen in the future, and the only thing that will not end is God's kingdom. Today we're going to look at some prophecies by Daniel. Daniel has this prophecy. He's about 67 years old, and at the end of this part of the book, things get a little wonky on the time frame. Actually, we're going to go back a little bit to Belshazzar's first year in power. Belshazzar was the king that came up after Nebuchadnezzar, and the people of Israel were a little frightened. They were a little worried about what was going to happen. And today we're going to see in our lesson that believers can live with confidence in all circumstances, knowing that God's kingdom is eternal. Look at me at Daniel chapter 7, verses 1 through 6. In the first year of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream with visions in his mind as he was laying in his bed. He wrote down the dream, and here is the summary of his account. Daniel said, "In my vision at night I was watching, and suddenly the four winds of heaven stirred up the great sea. 4 huge beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion, but had eagle's wings. I continued watching until its wings were torn off. It was lifted up from the ground, set on its feet like a man, and given a human mind. Suddenly another beast appeared, a second one, that looked like a bear. It was raised up on one side with 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, 'Get up, gorge yourself on flesh.' After this, while I was watching, suddenly another beast appeared. It was like a leopard with 4 wings of a bird on its back. It had 4 heads, and it was given dominion." Now, Daniel had a dream. It was a prophecy. What do you think the purpose of biblical prophecy is? Why does God give us a glimpse into the future at times? Well, I really think it's to give us comfort. These visions might be a little scary. These visions might be a little confusing, but in the end, God's trying to say, hey, I know what's coming. I'm actually orchestrating what's coming, and I want you to have a little comfort, a little peace in that. And that's what Daniel gets here. You see, like I said, Daniel is written in 2 sections. The first section is biographical, and the second section is full of the prophecies. The book's actually written in 2 languages, Aramaic and Hebrew. And this section is kind of a transition point between that biographical portion of the book and the prophetic portion of the book. And that's where we find Daniel here in bed dreaming. And he sees some visions. He sees some beasts. What's the first beast that he sees? Daniel sees a lion with some wings on it. Now, Daniel's getting a glimpse here of kingdoms. And this beast represents the kingdom of Babylon. And Babylon's not the first kingdom. Babylon's not the greatest kingdom of all time. But Babylon's the kingdom that Daniel was experiencing. So God begins his prophecy there with Daniel in Babylon. And this beast represents Babylon because we kind of see this imagery around Babylon. We know that a lion represented the nation, represented the kings of that nation. The second, he sees a bear that's hunched up on one side and got 3 ribs in its mouth. And that bear is told to go forth and gorge yourself. That bear, that lopsided bear is the Medo-Persian Empire, the one that comes after Babylon. Remember, Daniel gets this vision while Babylon is still ruling the area, ruling the region. And God's telling Daniel, there's another kingdom coming, and it's the Medo-Persian Empire. If we look back, we can see that. Next, he sees a leopard with 4 wings on its back, like a bird. This beast here represents the coming kingdom of the Greeks. Alexander the Great, he rose up to power in Greece, and he conquered the land. In 10 short years, he conquered the land all the way from Greece to India. And it has 4 heads because it represents the collapse, the falling apart of that Greek empire, divided into 4 different regions. They were still strong, they still had power, but they weren't as mighty as they once were. So here's a question for you to consider. Why do people, why do you place their trust, their hope in rulers and kingdoms for their security? What makes placing one's trust in rulers or leaders so appealing? You see, Daniel's looking 200 years into the future at this point. This beast that represents the Greek Empire, that's 200 years away. And Daniel's looking forward, and he's realizing, he's seeing a truth here. Kingdoms don't last. Those who placed their trust in the Babylonian Empire, well, their trust was taken away from them when the Babylonian Empire fell. Those who placed their trust in Alexander the Great and his great, powerful nation, their trust was destroyed when that nation fell apart and something comes after it. You see, we place our trust in leaders because it looks like they can provide us with security. They can take care of us in the midst of danger, in the midst of troubles. And we should know that leaders don't last forever. Kingdoms don't last forever. That's what Daniel is showing us, and that's what Daniel's seeing in this dream, in this vision. In all this, I think we can see that people should not place their hope in kingdoms of this earth. None are eternal. But Daniel's vision doesn't end just with the Greeks. He doesn't just see 3 beasts coming up. There's a 4th beast that comes. Let's look now at that 4th beast. After this, while I was watching in the night visions, suddenly a 4th beast appeared, frightening and dreadful, incredibly strong, with large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed, and it trampled with its feet whatever was left. It was different from all the beasts before it, and it had 10 horns. While I was considering the horns, suddenly another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. And suddenly, in this horn, there were eyes like the eyes of a human, and a mouth that was speaking arrogantly. Now here we see a 4th beast. A beast that Daniel really can't even describe in terms of our taxonomies. He doesn't really know even what this thing is. It scares him to death because this beast is powerful. It's got a lot of weight behind it, and it rises up. You see, by the 2nd century BC, Rome had surpassed Greece in its ability to rule. Rome had taken over the region. Rome was this 4th empire that Daniel looks forward and sees. And Daniel looks around and he sees these horns and this small horn growing up. And we really don't exactly know what all of this might mean. But the New Testament kind of explains it to us a little bit. We see that out of Rome, we get the Western world. Out of Rome grows up, maybe not from its region geographically exactly, but we get Western thought from the Greeks and then the Romans. And from that Western thought rises up a ruler way far in the future. This ruler the New Testament reveals to us is someone we know of as the Antichrist. This person is going to come at the end and really rule over and deceive the nations. But what does this little horn do when it rises up from those 10, when it rises up out of that Roman thought process and that Roman worldview? What does it do? It speaks arrogantly. You see, this person we know of as the Antichrist who's coming near the end. This person is going to deceive the nations. This person is going to corrupt governments. This person is going to breed chaos in the human, sinful sea that we are. But you see, throughout history, there have been many people like this. People who have opposed Jesus. People are those who oppose the Lord. And they're Antichrist. They are people who don't approve. Those who don't appreciate, those who don't love, those who don't have hope in Jesus, and they're the ones who stand against him. But all through history, these haven't lasted. All through history, they've come to their ends, like all things come to an end. But throughout all this, the love of Jesus, the hope that God gives us, the grace that expands God's kingdom has lived out, has kept going in the midst of all those who oppose it. We can see that people are warned when rulers mistakenly believe that they are worthy of praise. All throughout history, rulers rose up and said, I'm the one. I'm the one you should trust. Trust me. Don't worry about God. God's a fool. God's dead. God's not there. God can't protect you. I can do it. Praise me. Nebuchadnezzar tried it. Darius tried it. All these people have tried it, and they're all gone. We don't place our hope in leaders. Place our hope in God's kingdom. And the leader is going to come in that kingdom. Let's look now at that 5th kingdom that Daniel gets a glimpse of. As I kept watching, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white like snow, and the hair of his head like whitest wool. His throne was flaming fire, its wheels were blazing fire. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from his presence. Thousands upon thousands served him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was conveyed, and the books were opened. I watched then, because of the sound of the arrogant words the little horn was speaking. As I continued watching, the beast was killed, and its body thrown and given over to the burning fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was removed, but an extension of life was granted to them for a certain period of time. And I continued watching the night visions, and suddenly one like the Son of Man was coming with clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was escorted before him. He was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, so that those of every people, nation, and language should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion. They will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will not be destroyed. So here we no longer see kingdoms rising and falling. Here we finally see a different scene. Thrones are set up. The Ancient of Days comes. That's a picture of God himself. How is God described? He's described as the Ancient of Days, meaning someone who has control, wisdom, and longevity. He's been here forever. His clothes was like white snow, and his hair was the whitest of wool. This reflects not only his age, but also his purity, his holiness. He is not just the God who's been here forever, the God who has the power and the authority to rule. He is the God who is holy. Next, it says that his presence is marked by fire. Fire meaning God's judgment. God who has the authority to rule. God who created everything. God who is pure and sinless comes to judge. He judges these beasts in this vision. The little horn is still speaking arrogantly. But then one like the Son of Man comes on clouds of glory. And he comes forth and he's given dominion. He's given the authority to rule. The Father gives over that authority to the Son in this kingdom. Jesus actually quotes this or cites this in the New Testament. He's speaking to someone. He says in Matthew chapter 26, Jesus says, "You have said it, but I told you, in the future you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Those who heard Jesus said, "Whoa, he's talking about the coming Messiah. He's talking about himself. How dare he?" Jesus is saying, "I am that Son of Man. I'm the one who comes on clouds of glory. I'm the one who will judge the nations. I'm the one who will destroy the beast. I'm the one who destroyed that arrogant little horn, that Antichrist, that one who thinks he has the authority to cause chaos, that one who thinks he has the authority to judge, thinks he has the authority to question God. I will come and I will judge him." That kingdom that comes in the end, that kingdom won't be swept aside by another army. That kingdom that comes at the end will not fall because of greed. That kingdom that comes at the end will be ruled by Jesus, and it will be inhabited by his people. Believers can trust that God's rule will last for eternity. Now, we had a quick lesson today, and many of you are going, well, let's talk more about the prophecy. Let's talk more about what these beasts mean. Let's talk more about how we can see this in history. But I want to say, stop. Hang on just 1 second. Let's not think about how all this appeared in history. That is important. But I want us to leave here today with the idea that one day, way off in the future, a king is going to come. That king is going to set all things in order. That king is going to take powerful men who oppose him and say, push you aside. I'm the king. I'm the ruler. And all those of us who maybe like those Jews in that first year of Belshazzar when Daniel gets this dream, maybe those of us who are worried about the state of things, those of us who are worried and fearful that we are going to be in trouble because of other people, that people are going to hurt us, people are going to come against us, we need to look forward to that day. Look forward in future to that time where God says, I'm going to set all things right. When thrones will be set up, books will be opened, the king will come on a cloud of glory, and he will set all things straight. So this week I want to challenge you. When you get fearful, when you get worried, when you get all tied up in knots because of the world, look to the future, look to the king that's coming, place your trust and hope in him.